In this video, I'm going to go through a driving test report sheet of a learner driver who emailed me in a few weeks ago explaining how he failed, and he also shared the feedback that he got from his driving tester. So I'm going to share that feedback with you, so hopefully the same mistakes don't happen to you on your driving test. Now, just very briefly, if you would like to support me here as I strive to make more and better driving lesson videos freely available to you and others following you, then you can do so by PayPal. Links will be in the description and in the first pinned comment. And I'm very grateful for any support. Thank you to anybody out there who has donated to this channel. Much appreciated. Okay, let's get on with the video then. This is the driving test report sheet here. Now, in general, it's not too bad. You know, I've seen a lot worse over the years. He has 11 grade 2s and 1 grade 3. A grade 3 mark is something that is dangerous or potentially dangerous. So it's not something I'd easily excuse because a grade 3 needs to be looked at and reflected upon by the learner to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But he only just missed out on grade 2s, and of course the grade 3 is not ideal. As we'll see, it was just a misjudgment that hopefully he can learn from. So overall, as I said, it's not the worst, and with some practice and some driving lessons, he should have a great chance of passing the next time. Now, I am going to start with that grade 3, but first of all, let's look at how a fail can occur on your driving test report sheet. If you get 9 or more grade 2s overall, then that's going to be a fail. Now, this is what happened here. If you count them up, you'll see he got 11 grade 2s. So he was going to fail on an over-accumulation of grade 2 marks. You can also fail if you get 4 or more grade 2 marks in a single area. Now, this didn't happen to this candidate, although it nearly did. If you look at position turning right there's 3 on that. Now, if he'd got 1 more there, and that would have made 4 marks on position turning right, he would have failed on that alone, because the tester would see the candidate as being too weak in one area to pass a driving test. If you get 6 or more grade 2 marks under a single heading, then that will also constitute a fail. Now, this did not happen here. The closest he came was probably 4 there under position. So overall, he got 4 marks under position. If he had got 2 more marks under position, that would have meant he'd got 6 under one heading, and that would have been a fail. But that didn't happen on this particular test. The other reason he failed, of course, was 1 grade 3 mark. So if you get 1 or more grade 3 mark, then that's going to be a fail. A grade 3, as I said, is something that is very serious, dangerous, or potentially dangerous. You'll see at the bottom there, the grade 3 he got was on right of way, moving off. So let's talk about that grade 3 mark now. He was doing a hill start, so he was parked up on the left. Now, there was another car about 4 or 5 car lengths back, he says. The driving test candidate moved off and everything seemed to be perfectly fine. But then the learner driver noticed that the car behind, who was stationary as he was about to move off, according to him, had already pulled away and was all of a sudden either close behind the learner driver or about to overtake him. I don't know, because he wasn't very specific. He just said that he was right there and he was surprised. So I don't know. I presume he was just, the other car just got close behind him. The learner driver genuinely thought that he had moved off first, so therefore assumed he had right of way. Now, on the face of it, that seems like a perfectly plausible conclusion to come to, but you need to be aware of the following when it comes to hill starts, because that's what this was. He was moving off on a hill. You're on a hill, so therefore it's going to be steeper than other types of moving off, such as moving off on the flat or on the downhill. So therefore it's going to take a little bit longer to get away. Now, this needs to be taken into account, and you need to make sure that you have enough space to pull away successfully. In most cases, your car's side mirrors are going to be convex. That means that they're slightly curved. Now, this is great because it means you've got a wider field of view, so you basically see more, but the downside is that objects appear smaller in your side mirror than what they are in reality. So therefore, your eyes can be fooled into thinking that something is further away just because it looks smaller in your side mirror. For example, take a look at this black and silver car here. In my side mirror, the black and silver car look very, very small. But now, when I look in my blind spot now, as this picture shows, they seem a lot bigger. So it seems definitely smaller and further away in the side mirrors, but certainly more realistic in the blind spot. And look here, we have a blue car and a red van here. Now in my side mirror here, these look absolutely tiny. They're so small, and you could be forgiven for thinking that they're 70 or 80 meters away. But then when I check my blind spot now, they seem much bigger. And then when I just stepped outside the car then, I had another picture here, and again it's almost exactly like my blind spot. They seem much bigger and much closer than what they initially appeared when I checked the side mirror. Now I hope this clearly illustrates why it is so important to check your blind spot when moving off and to keep it updated, because things change. So if you find yourself being a little bit slow moving off, or maybe you got delayed or something like that, it's so important to check the mirrors and the blind spot again. This is known as refreshing them, and therefore it keeps it up to date, especially the blind spot, because as I said, things do appear smaller in your mirrors than what they are in reality. So in my email response to the learner driver, I emphasised this. I emphasised how important it is to keep your mirrors and blind spot up to date and keep them refreshed if you're delayed, or if a queue of traffic or a line of traffic develops behind you and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know if he was a little bit rusty on the blind spot, if he needed to refresh it. He didn't give me a second reply, so I don't know, but I'm guessing so. If he moved off and he misjudged the other car, I can only assume that his mirrors and blind spot were out of date. Maybe he misjudged them because of the convex mirrors. I don't know. But I know this is a common misjudgment among learners out there, generally speaking anyway. So this is some video footage of me moving off a few weeks ago. It is a hill start as well, actually. Now, if you notice me there, I'm moving off pretty much a second or half a second after my blind spot. So there is very, very little gap there between my blind spot check and me moving off. You'll also notice there that as I was moving off, I gave one or two side mirror checks as well, the right side mirror, just to make sure everything was okay and to make sure nobody was speeding up on me. So in summary, if you're moving off from the side of the road, make sure your observational checks are properly done and up to date, especially on the hill start, where it'll probably take you a little bit longer to pull away anyway. Now the next mark we're going to look at is position turning left, and we might be able to link this in with observation changing lanes as well, because it's quite possible that the two of them are linked in some way. So the learner says that he was approaching a junction, and probably due to lack of planning and lack of awareness, he somehow ended up in the wrong lane. He missed a slip lane in order to take a left turn, so therefore he had to move from the right lane to the left lane in order to take a slightly different left turn a little bit further up. Now, this is probably going to be connected to not reading the road ahead and maybe focusing on the one thing too much. Because if you do focus on the one thing too much, you will probably do that one thing right, but other related things could suffer, as is probably what happened in this situation. As you're approaching a junction, and this is especially true if the junction you're approaching is not very familiar to you, or you find it a little bit difficult or challenging, it's very important to kind of take stock of the situation and not focus on the one thing too much. So as I'm approaching this junction here, I need to be aware of any markings, the lights, any people that might be around, but also this little slip lane up here to the left. So if I'm asked to go left, I know I have to take this little left turn up the hill here so I can go the proper way. And look here, as I'm coming down this hill, it's a good idea just to slow down slightly. Now, not too much, because you don't want to get marked down for progress either, but just a slight little bit of a slowdown if you're not familiar with the junction especially. And therefore that will give you more time to scan and to analyse and to make a note of the lanes dividing into two and the arrows as well. So for example, if I'm going straight, I'll be in the left lane. But if I want to turn right, I'm going to need to take up position in the right lane. So it is important to be aware of these things, whether it's signs, markings, the existence of lights or pedestrians as well, just so you have a good overall idea of what to expect in the junction that's up ahead. On this issue, the learner feels that he probably rushed the lane change a little bit, and maybe he didn't get enough mirror checks as he was going from the right lane to the left lane to make up for the fact that he missed the slip lane earlier on. Now, he's not 100% sure. The observation change in lane could be connected to a different fault, which we'll get to next, but he suspects it might be that. Another area where the learner remembers where he went wrong was on position turning right. Now, again, this could also be connected to observation changing lanes, as I said, but I just want to paint a picture first based on what he said to me. So the learner driver was exiting a roundabout, and then he entered a large 3-lane junction that he wasn't familiar with. The tester asked him to go right, so he went from lane 1, that'll be the most left lane, because he was probably in the left lane. According to him, I'm assuming he was in the left lane, or he was close to the left lane anyway, so he probably started off in the left lane. But he assumed that he would go from lane 1 to lane 3. So that means to go from the very left lane to go to the very extreme right lane. Now, the learner driver wasn't very specific, but it sounds from my reading of his email that he went directly from lane 1 to lane 3. Now, that is a big, big no-no. If you are changing 2 lanes in a driving test, or in whether you're driving on your own or in private, whatever, you need to do it one by one. So you would change from lane 1 to lane 2 with proper observation, double checking your mirrors and all that. Then you would drive for a little bit of a period of time. Now, that might only be a few seconds, because I know you might not have a lot of time, but you would drive at least for a short period of time in the middle lane, and then move over to the 3rd lane if that's where you're supposed to be. You need to change lanes one by one, as this ensures you are giving each lane the proper observation that it requires and that it deserves. Make sure you get lots of mirror checks, and possibly even a quick and very brief sideway glance, just to make sure that it's safe to do so. I have a video on changing lanes, and I'll leave a link in the description if you'd like to find out more on observation changing lanes. Now, the next area that the learner remembers is at traffic lights. Now, he lost marks on traffic lights and on gears there. I'm sure they're connected, because I think the mistakes accumulated at the one junction, at a traffic lights junction. So basically, he was waiting at a set of traffic lights. The light was red, and he was waiting for a good while, probably over 20 seconds anyway, I'd say at least. So he was on a steep enough hill, and he claims there was no filter light, just a normal set of traffic lights, although I don't think that's a major issue here anyway. But he knows he was waiting a long time, and he was conscious of that. So he decided to put the gear stick into neutral. He says he had the handbrake up, which is good. You should use your handbrake at lights for more security. But he popped it into neutral in order to give his foot a rest. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong with this, but when it was time to go, he released the handbrake and rolled back, because he forgot that he wasn't in first gear. He was still in neutral, and this caused the car to roll back. I was very surprised reading this, because, I mean, you don't let down the handbrake at lights unless you have the bite. Like, you have to feel the clutch bite. I'm sure you know what I mean. When you give it a little bit of juice, bring up your clutch, and you'll feel a little pull on the car. You do not let your handbrake down before you feel that, because if you do let it down, this is what can happen. Anyway, he rolled back a good bit. He didn't tell me how much now. He just said a good bit, so I don't know what to make of that. It could have been only a couple of feet, I don't know. He might have kind of came harsh on the brake, because as you'll see on the sheet there, he lost a mark on Footbrake as well. So possibly he braked hard in maybe a slight panic, I don't know. And he eventually regathered himself and was able to move away eventually. But it certainly wasn't a good look, and he probably got a bit flustered in the aftermath of this mistake. So I'm sure he lost a mark here on traffic lights, and possibly on gears too, because he tried to move off in neutral accidentally. Just briefly, when it comes to traffic lights, you should use your handbrake at lights for more security. Especially if there's any pedestrians or cyclists that might be around, using your handbrake just makes the car more secure and more safe. Wait in first gear. That means you're more ready to go. It is okay to wait in neutral if you're further back in the queue, or if you know you're going to be waiting a while. But the longer you're waiting, the more likely it is that you need to be getting into first gear, just so you're ready to pull off. Think of FACT to move off. FACT stands for the following: F is first gear, A is accelerator, C is clutch up, and then T is for takeoff, as in the car will take off or take off the handbrake. This is a very important little acronym, and it can help you to avoid the mistakes that this learner had when he rolled back accidentally in neutral. I've made lots of videos on traffic lights, as regular viewers will know, and I'll leave links in the description to those for a detailed description of the various types of lights you might face and how to turn right at traffic lights. And I'll also leave links in the description to do with handbrake, when to use it and the best times to use it. Okay, so check that out if you want more details on traffic lights and on handbrake use. As I said, I think the Footbrake mistake was probably picked up here as well. But anytime you're braking, you need to plan ahead, you need to think ahead and know where, roughly at least, where you're stopping. Make sure you have your heel on the ground and just kind of gently press the brake. You don't usually have to go in with a full single press. You can kind of give the brake a gentle little tap and then maybe slightly let go of it and then press it again and then slightly let go of it. I like to call that massaging the brake. Again, as with everything else, I've made a video on how to use the Footbrake properly, and I'll leave a link in the description as well if you'd like to check that out. The learner driver also picked up marks on clearance. So this, now although he didn't give me any specific details, I can only assume that he got too close to some parked cars that were on the road, on the left probably. This is the type of thing that just takes practice and experience to take care of. But it is a good idea, if you want, to park your car beside another car, park it safely. Make sure you're about a door length, and you can just test that by just getting outside and carefully opening the door to make sure that you're a door length from the parked car. This is what I did here. Now, this is when I'm a door length from the parked car. You can see there I've got a nice bit of a gap between my panel, where the passenger side door is, and the door handle of the other car. Now, when I'm not a door length, like I'm less than a door length here, I'm about a quarter of a door length here, you can see that there is less of a gap between my door panel and the white door handle of the other car. So this is my way of doing it in my car, and this is something you could do as well, because all cars are different and it might be slightly different in your car. So if you park your car up and do this little exercise, it might give you a good way to gauge whether you're a door length or not from parked cars on your lessons or on your test. What I find with a lot of mistakes that learner drivers make is that they are sometimes thinking a little bit too far ahead in certain situations. Now, I always say it's good to think ahead and plan ahead. I've said that many, many times in my videos. But if you're in a busy and a challenging environment where you realise, like this learner did on the left turn, for example, that you might be in the wrong lane for that left turn, or you might be in the wrong position, then you have to think one specific task at a time and do not think much further than 7 to 10 to 12 metres ahead. This means focusing completely on getting into the correct lane or the correct position safely, and then focus on the actual left turn. At this stage, you need to deal with what you can at that moment before you think too far ahead. Now, sometime after you've taken the left turn, then you might have a longer and a quieter stretch of road, and then you can think and plan much further ahead. As I always say, each road and junction is different, so treat them all on an individual basis. Now, there was other marks there lost on position and observation. For example, position turning right. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I will leave links in the description. I have a very detailed video on position turning right, and the learner driver wasn't very specific, but I can only assume that, for example, the blue car here is taking a right, but he's a little bit too central, so he's not over there enough. You know, it could be things like that. It could be lining up, straddling the lanes in multi-lane traffic. It could be for maybe cutting the corner, like the yellow car is cutting the corner there. It could be a whole number of things. So check out my video on position turning right for more detailed information. And the same when it comes to observation turning right and observation turning left. So if we say the blue car is there, it's very important that the blue car stops at the line and that he needs to creep out and give himself a better view if he's a bit blinded by trees or by a wall or anything. Has to keep the head moving, lots of quick looks, and then just as he's crossing the white line then, so he's about there, he needs to get one last look towards the yellow car. And then if he's going this way, turn left, just as he crosses the white line, he needs to get one last look to the right. You need to get your mirrors first before you indicate, of course. And As I said with the positional issue, I have lots of videos on observation turning right and observation turning left. So check out the link in the description for more details on observation. If you have any information that your driving tester shared with you in the aftermath of your driving test, then why not let us know in the comments? I'd be interested to hear that, as would other learner drivers. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it the old thumbs up, and I'll be back very soon. Thank you very much for watching. Agus slán go fóill.